Hi everybody, this is lesson 2 of the Basic Music Reading Skills course by Paul Hill. This assumes that you've listened to lesson 1 and you understand that and have completed the work for lesson 1. Lesson 2, as it says, is going to talk about treble and bass clefs and expression and articulation markings. In our last session, we covered music as symbols and then went on to learn 2 basic music symbols, the music staff, made up of lines and spaces, and then the bar lines that we put on the music staff. And this time we're going to look at even more additions to our music staff. These are the treble and bass clefs and the grandstaffs. And this is a hymn as it might appear in a typical church hymnal. And in most of the hymns in our hymnal, there are 2 sets of staves for each line of music. And we're going to learn that every part of that staff eventually, is important. But the most important symbol to learn for right now is the symbol that is used to designate higher from lower. And this group of symbols is known as clefs. And the word clef comes from the French word that means key. And that is where we get the name. We're going to look mostly at these 2 circled symbols. There are other clefs, but these are the 2 we're going to look at. They tell us specific information that we need to know before we can read the music. Let's notice 2 things that are important. First, there are usually 2 staves grouped together, and secondly, they are joined by a single line, much like a bar line, but this line extends past the staff and connects the 2 staves together, which you can see on the very left there. In practically all hymns and most music that you'll see, there will be usually 2 staves and maybe more, depending upon which instruments are playing along. There is really no limit to the amount of staves that can be joined together. If you've ever seen a conductor score, for instance, all the staves for each instrument of the orchestra are all connected together. But in hymns, we usually have 2 staves, and in most choral or singing music as well. The one on the top of the 2 is usually for the higher voices or instruments, and it's called the treble clef. The staff below it is for lower voices and instruments, and it is known as the bass clef. Lower, in the case of singing, typically refers to men's voices, and higher refers to female voices. So it all depends on your range, but we'll learn more about pitches and lines and spaces as we go on, but in general, that's the designation for the 2 clefs. First, the upper clef, or the treble clef, has an easily identifiable shape. It's one of the most well-known musical symbols, used a lot outside of the musical context even. Nothing else really looks like it. And you can open your hymnal or music score anywhere, and I'm sure that you'll see a treble clef somewhere. And this particular group of staves is known as the grand staff in this particular combination. So we'll learn about the names of the lines and spaces in the next lesson more particularly, but for now, just know that when we're speaking of the treble upper clef, the second line up from the bottom is the G line. And you can see that the circle of the treble clef centers on that G line, and that's why sometimes it is known as the G clef. It tells us where the line for G is, and it rests squarely on that line, much like a bullseye. And we're going to learn how to draw this symbol because it's important that you learn how to do so. And in your handout and on your worksheet, you'll have that opportunity. And, you can just trace it on there, or sometimes people like to, everybody has a different way of drawing it, but you could start at the dot at the bottom and go up through the symbol. Some of them, some folks like to draw the straight line and then draw the curves around it. But you can practice drawing how it works for you. But it's important that you be able to, if you're going to notate music, be able to draw the clefs, including the treble clef, which can be tricky. The clef for the lower notes, let's skip down to that, is called the bass clef. And the just as the treble clef is centered on the line G, the bass clef centers around a specific line on the lower staff. The fourth line up from the bottom is the F line. And so for right now, only worry about that line. You can see that the bass clef, or as it's sometimes called, the F clef, does very clearly indicate where that line for F is. It starts on the F line, and then it's sort of a backward C, and it's followed by those two dots, which are almost like a colon in punctuation, and those appear on either side of the F line. So that doubly indicates that line. And again, when you're practicing it, drawing it on your staff paper, on your worksheet, make sure that you place it so that it's centered on the correct line. So the next thing we want to do is, if you've started at the top and you've put the treble clef on your first staff, and then on the second staff you've put a bass clef, you can just, as it's indicated in red here on this slide, just draw the join the treble and bass clefs together by drawing that extended bar line that connects both staves, and you'll have created a grand staff. Again, we're not meeting in class, but you can, in addition to creating the treble clef, bass clef, and a grand staff, you can then add some normal bar lines, a double bar line, and a final bar line based on what you know that they should be. And you can create a total of about 6 measures or so. Just make sure that your bar lines do connect all the way through both staves, and that way we can know where those measures happen, and that the measures happen in the same place on both staves. So those are our clefs and the beginnings of where we will put our notes. Another category of marking that we will now visit, again, briefly, because there are many examples that we could pursue for each of these areas, but we'll just look at a small sample of the expression symbols and articulation symbols. Articulation and expression terms and symbols act much like what punctuation is to words in literature. Punctuation helps the reader know how to apply inflection to the passage, which adds emotion and drama to the reading. And punctuation can change the way a sentence is read, as well as what the sentence is attempting to communicate. For example, we've all seen these sort of comma examples. Woman without her, man is a savage, right? That's how you might pronounce that sentence with that punctuation. And then again, this time, woman without her man is a savage. These are the same words, right? But there's a big difference in the meaning of those words, all because of the punctuation. So music, in that same way, uses a different set of symbols. We call them sort of musical punctuation symbols that determine the meaning of a particular passage. And there are the two categories. Let's first look at articulations. Articulation, or articulators, are words or symbols that communicate how notes are literally to be performed, played, or sung. An accent can be that way, or sometimes it's also up and down. It's the same meaning, but different way to play it. And when it's placed above or below an individual note, that particular note is to be performed with a harsher attack or a stronger attack. A dot, which is not always square, as in this case, but most often round, represents staccato, and it's a dot that's placed above or below an individual note, and it needs to perform that note as crisply, sharply, and or short as possible. And you've all seen the fermata symbol, which some people call a bird's eye because of it sort of looking like a half eye symbol. And it informs the musician to hold that note longer than the note calls for rhythmically. And if a conductor is involved, it is the conductor's decision how long that note is to be held. If a conductor is not involved, it's up to the individual musician's decision. A straight line, a tenuto line, is a symbol placed above or below a note, and it means to hold that note to the fullest value that the note can allow, not longer than, but don't de-emphasize the note and don't cheat the length that it is held. And a comma, or in this case it looks more like an apostrophe, is a breath point. It's placed after or before a note, indicating to the musician to take a breath at that point, or a phrase for instruments that don't use wind to produce sound. And sometimes it's placed because the musician needs to breathe, or it may be a way of indicating a slight pause for phrasing purposes. Again, we talked about that. So we could sing Happy Birthday, the Happy Birthday song. And you can see where the commas are. And, we all know how to sing this song. We even know how to sing the tune to the song. And then if you look at it with articulators on just the text, you can think that that's kind of how we might sing it. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, God bless you. We always hold that one. Happy birthday to you. And even if we were wanting to sing it a little bit differently, we could use those articulation symbols as a way to tell us, well, this is how we should express that song this particular time. We might do it differently another time, but in this case, we could do it that way. So that's some basic articulation marks. And the other kind of mark that we want to talk about today are expression marks. And these are indicators, and they're usually words that are used to help shape the music artistically. There are many, many words in this category, but there are three of them that you are most likely to encounter. And we want to just dwell on some of those. We could have an endless list of these, especially in more modern music. Two examples in this slide are legato, which is an Italian word, and many of these are in Italian traditionally and have continued to be in Italian, and that means to play the music smoothly. And maestoso, which is another one that means to make the music broad, maybe slightly slower. Even majestic, heavily accented. Normally, they're shown above the music line prior to whatever section or set of notes that you are to play in this way. And some of the indications, the expression marks, are in English, and a few of those might be accented, right? And so instead of putting an accent articulation mark on each note, it means to perform the music as if there were accents on each note, but not necessarily printed on each note. With great emotion, obviously the performer is to perform this passage with a lot of emotion, and this is difficult to communicate and is clearly more of an approach that depends on the attitude of performance. Basically, composers can put any instruction they think is necessary or helpful to help communicate their music. Things like sung with joyful exuberance, or sung with great expression, or It says performed with deep emotion, etc. So these are all expression marks that we might use to be able to indicate how the music is to be sung. Here's our happy birthday song again. And legato, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Slow that down then. Happy birthday. God bless you. Happy birthday to you. So you can sing it probably better than me, but again, we could sing that a very different way than in the previous slide with just the articulators present, because this communicates a bit more of the mood of the piece. So that's the second lesson, and it's much easier to digest, I think, than the first lesson. So we've now learned in both of our opening lessons about staff lines, bar lines and measures, treble and bass clefs, and some expression and articulation markings. The next lesson is getting into the meat of what we are going to be talking about when we talk about reading music, and that is the lines and the spaces and those interesting music letter names. So thanks for joining us. Hopefully you have access to the supplemental materials that you can do at home on your own, but if not, feel free to contact me and we'll put you in touch with those, and we'll see you the next time.